Welcome to the Cuddler Chronicles, pain-free living beyond the body. And there are a lot of areas of life that are a pain in the... And your business's brand and your image and the website definitely falls into that. So with that in mind, I have Juliet Oliva, the CEO and creative director of Pixel Strike Creative.
That's me.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So with this, I know we've talked a bunch about websites and things like that, and I kind of wanted to get your perspective on the different website platforms, because I know mine is on Wix, right? I know a lot of people are on Squarespace, a lot of people are on, God, what is the other one? Hello.
WordPress?
Thank you. Yep, WordPress. A lot of
That's the
people
one
love
we build
WordPress.
on. Yeah,
Oh, is
yeah.
it? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
so-
So tell me about the difference of those.
Yeah, I mean, WordPress is, God, I think something like just over 30% of all the websites on the web are WordPress sites. Like it's a very reliable
percentage.
platform. It's
Okay.
open source, which means anyone can develop and code for it. So it's easy to find documentation. It's easy to find resources on it. It's easy to find like pre-built components that you can plug into your site to enhance the functionality. And then there's platforms like Wix and Squarespace, and the difference between those and something like WordPress is like the difference between renting your site versus owning your site.
Okay.
So Wix and Squarespace, for example, like if you are ever wanting to move that website to another platform or somewhere else, you don't get to take your site with you. It's going to be a copy and paste process. There's no like export, there's no migration process. So
Wow.
they've pretty much got your content. Another thing is they have the rights to your content as well, which is in the terms and conditions that everyone doesn't read because it's 100 pages long. But you basically agree to let them have access and use your content however they want.
Wow.
And the way it's kind of phrased in their legal conditions, and I'm not a lawyer, but it's sort of like it implies that they're going to use it as like a portfolio piece. Like we want to use a screenshot to like show like, look at the great examples of people who've built Wix sites, on our platform. But the language is dicey. It's not that cut and dry. Like the way it's written, they can pretty much do what they want. They don't have to tell you about it. They don't have to notify you. They don't have to ask because they already did, basically.
Wow.
But there are some advantages to having a platform like Wix and Squarespace. They're a much lower cost barrier to entry. WordPress has like free themes, pre-built themes that you can get, and those are free, but they're a little tricky in terms of figuring out how to set them up yourself. Like you'll probably need a developer to help you or somebody who's a little bit tech savvy.
Okay. So Wix and the other ones are
those are kind of
easier,
plug and play.
But
yeah, you got to kind of.
So you have to have some knowledge to get into WordPress.
Exactly.
All right.
But there's a lot of information like on the internet about WordPress and the documentation, all of that. Great resources and tutorials. But if that's something you don't want to deal with or don't have a lot of comfort with, you want to maybe do something else. So Wix and Squarespace, lower cost barrier to entry. They have some advantages that are built in as far as like maintenance goes. So like you don't have to worry about like updating your platform and making sure everything is like always being maintained and up to date because those platforms do it for you. WordPress, you'll need to do that yourself or have someone do it for you.
Okay.
Because a website is a living, breathing thing. It needs maintenance like people do. It needs like a car, needs regular tune-ups and check-ins. You got to put oil in there, so but WordPress can be a little bit more to maintain. It's a little more costly in terms of like paying for that maintenance, right? And like getting the site built. We build all custom. We don't do anything out of the box, nothing canned.
Okay.
So
no templates.
No templates, no.
Okay.
So we build it for the business, for their needs, for their goals, what they need the website to do for them, essentially. That's always one of the first things I ask people is what do you want your website to do for you? So, so there's a few differences in the types of platforms there, but...
Yeah, so it sounds like, it's better for you to be able to be more creative, to be more distinct for businesses.
Absolutely.
Even with the higher the onus on you to be more into the maintenance, and so it gives you more control.
It gives you way more control. You can do more with your search engine optimization. You have a lot more functionality there you can play with. You can do custom code on WordPress. Some of it's limited on Wix and Squarespace. You can't build everything you want to build. If you know enough about code, Wix and Squarespace are very frustrating because it's like, I just want to do the thing and it won't let me do the one thing I want to do, and it's very tricky and annoying. But the differentiator is like important, I think, for businesses. You want to stand out, and Wix and Squarespace, they do look nice, but they're a little cookie cutter, and
hard to stand out.
It's hard to stand out in the crowd. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So that's why, because one of my questions that I had was, why would somebody pay more for WordPress if they're all the same? But you're telling me it's if you want it to be customized, you pay for customization. If you want to
stand out, if you want to have your own design. I mean, you can always plug in your colors and your logo to like Wix, Squarespace. It can look like you, but it's still going to look like every other website out there. So when you get to the custom side of it, you have a lot of room to play there.
Okay, so we're talking about customization. We're talking about your specific brand. You mentioned something that you called empathy in design. Tell me what that is.
Okay. So empathy, right? Empathy is defined as being able to share or understand, right, the feelings of other people.
Right.
And there's a lot of great reasons to practice empathy just in our day-to-day lives. Like a lot of social benefits. You can understand people better. You can understand how you influence people's perceptions based on your words and actions as well, and then that makes it easier for you to maybe like bring people along with you, convince them of things, or connect with them.
So it's not just the message I want to get across; it's the message that you want them to have.
It's about them, you want to connect and resonate. Because if you're not resonating with your audience, then you might as well just be invisible, right? So designing, designing with empathy. It's ultimately, design is about solving problems, and we want to solve problems with people. We're humans. We're building solutions for humans. You always want to keep your audience in mind, so that you can build something that's going to resonate with them, address any of their needs, their concerns, their fears. Just having that understanding just makes for better design work. It doesn't really work. There's no really one size fits all kind of solution with design. That model doesn't really work for us anymore. So really, like, being empathetic, being able to have those like custom tailored sort of solutions for people. Like, customers do expect things to be tailored to them now, and businesses that aren't able to do that are kind of falling away a little bit. So being able to kind of have that solution that's tells you that, like, I understand you, I know what you're looking for, I know how, like, what patterns you're used to doing on the web. I'm not going to put like weird things that aren't clickable or are clickable that look like they are or aren't. It's just, I don't want to confuse any of the user patterns. Like, I just, it's for you. So, and I think, as an audience member, I think that kind of makes you feel like, oh, they've heard me, and I think that's a great way to connect with people. Yeah.
And you were talking about taking care of the customer's problems. And I guess from your end, it's almost like you're doing two steps of that, because there's the businesses that you serve and their problems are, am I solving these people's problems?
Right.
So you're taking care of their problems so they can take care of their problems.
Exactly.
A lot of pain-free living happening.
Through empathy. So
through empathy. And I guess it's not just the emotions, but it's also like people that are differently abled. And that's what you mean by accessibility, right?
So
the empathy and accessibility really
they go hand
together.
in hand. They really do. And I think there's a lot of great arguments for accessibility that are built on empathy. Sometimes when we're designing experiences for the web, they can inadvertently leave people out. And that's not what we want. You don't want to like leave some customers out of experiencing your website, because that's essentially leaving money on the table too. It's also the right thing to do, to just consider other humans. But we want to make sure that people who are differently abled, like maybe they're using a screen reader or assistive technologies, you want to make sure that it's developed in a way that the screen reader knows what order to go in and like what it's reading, and that it makes sense, that the actions are clear. Things like having alt tags on your images in the back end of your site, right? That's like when you hover over an image and it gives you that little description. Yeah. That's your alt tag.
Like
and that's
boy holding tablet, smiling.
Exactly. It's the description of what the photo is, and that is mainly for people who use assistive technology so they can consume the content.
Gotta be honest, didn't think about any of that when we designed our site.
Yeah.
At least I didn't.
You have to think about, the technologies they're using, the color contrast. They might have visual impairments, their auditory impairments.
You were telling me like different fonts and how it's harder to read for certain populations.
Readability is a big part of it. Other like cognitive impairments. So even the way you lay out a form, like a contact form, like you have a label on the field, and then you have there's a little prompt in the field. It's usually the same, but it's like, hey, email address here. But when you remove that label on top of the field in lieu of just what's in the field, like people with cognitive impairments might not be able to remember what they're filling out. For example, they might not like, what was this again? What am I supposed to put in here?
Now I have to delete the whole thing so I can see the tag again.
Exactly. Wow. So we want to make sure that everybody has a clear, good experience with your site, with your brand, because really, I mean, people who are differently abled, they are functioning, valuable members of society, and it's good to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Like, we want everyone on board.
And I've heard like this quote, and I've used it a bunch, but I heard this quote a long time ago that just said, "Love is in the details." Anybody can do the big stuff, right? But in the details. So that's really awesome that you're actually thinking about all the little details of who could be in your audience. How can we bring business into your business by caring about everyone?
Yeah, we want to consider people's needs,
at least in little
right?
ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't be all things to all people, but
That's true.
You can take steps. I had no idea that there were ADA compliance things for website stuff.
Yeah, I mean, ADA compliance, it applies to everything, and some people do get sued over not having an accessible website. Big brands sometimes do. I mean, I can't remember, there was some rapper that got sued a few years ago for it.
For not having an
website. Yeah, exactly. And so I think we're going to see more and more of that in coming years too. It's in part because that's a real problem, but also there are kind of trolls that are looking for people to sue, right? So we had the patent trolls in like the early 2000s, and it's just ridiculous. So
I actually wasn't even aware of that in the early 2000s. That was a big thing.
Yeah, like early 2000s, like kind of. And like the first decade or so, it was, I had a job where they were using a certain type of model for their store locator, right? And the way that it functioned, someone said, "Hey, I patented that. Like, I came up with that order of operations for the computer to like do it the way it does." So they tried to sue this company. They lost because it was a very common solution, and it wasn't. You don't get to patent, air, things that everybody does and needs. So,
That's funny. Okay, so as far as whose problems you can solve, I know every business needs a website and it needs to be functional and it needs to do the things that they want it to do. But where is your sweet spot as far as like, when somebody starts up, they're probably like, unless they have a bunch of capital, they might be like, that's a little bit much right now. Let me go after Wix. When I think is the best time for you, for somebody to come to Pixel Strike Creative?
I mean, in the beginning is great. I mean, a website and a brand, it is an investment. It's easy to think this, but I kind of lean towards like, well, if you can't afford to invest in your business, like, can you have the business? Can you afford to have the business? Is it going to be worth doing? I'm a firm believer that if it's worth doing right the first time, because you're going to pay for it all over again. It's a little short-sighted to kind of say like, oh, this is cheap now and I'll transition later, because you're going to have problems. Your brand's not going to make the best impression. And eventually, if you are going to invest in it, like all the money you've spent up to that point is down the toilet, basically. So. But it's helpful to get there in the beginning. I realize it doesn't always work that way for people. Like, small businesses don't have a lot of capital to work with a lot of the time, so you have to get crafty. It's a lot of DIY, which is great, but at least having a conversation with someone about it, and kind of understanding like what to expect in terms of maintenance costs and, how do I create a great first impression for people. I mean, people are judging your website within 3 seconds. They've gotten their first impression, and they've already just like 90% of those first impressions are design based. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, people judge books by their covers. We do it. We can't help it. As much as we try not to, we do. So having a nicely organized, clean site, very helpful. for that impression. Yeah.
Awesome. Tell people how they can find you.
So we are on the internet.
Yes.
The web. So we're at
The interwebs.
pixelstrikecreative.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, but we don't post as often as we should. So we're always doing things for our clients instead, so we don't have time for us. The cobbler's children has no shoes. That's what they say.
Yeah.
But we're on the web, and we're always around.
Okay.
Yeah.
The best way to get to you, is it like the contact form from your website, or
Contact form, or just give us a call. But
Okay.
we've got a Google business page, so if you
Okay.
search Pixel Strike Creative, we should come up. And
Okay.
but I'm better at responding to things digitally
Okay.
personally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're gonna get a faster
You
response.
work in that space, so
Yeah.
I guess it's easier to contact you in that space, right?
It is,
Yeah,
and
that
it's
makes sense.
easier for me to kind of do that and multitask a little bit than it is for me to drop everything for a phone call. And so I can get back to people way faster in the digital space.
It makes
So,
sense.
Yeah,
Makes
I
sense.
like to be speedy about that when I can. So.
Okay. So, this is the point in the interviews where we transition from, you know your business. We don't really know your business. You know your business, and that's what this part was. I have a question. Did you ever see, oh God, what was it called? Inside the Actors Studio. Did you ever see
I
that?
don't think I did.
Okay. Look it up on YouTube. It's
All right.
good stuff. But anyway, they had this survey of it was a set of questions that the host asked every guest, and that's what we have in the Painkiller Closer.
Right on.
So that's what we're going to move into, and this is just getting to know you.
Sure.
Right. So the first question is, what is the best piece of advice that either you've given or you've been given in your industry?
So I would say in my industry, the best piece of advice probably came from one of my college professors.
Okay.
Precious Begarin is her name. She's a brilliant woman, but she told us that design is about communication. Your job is not just about making things look nice and making it make sense. Like, your job is to communicate. And there's visual communication, and there's verbal communication, there's written communication. You need to be able to have hard conversations with clients about money, things that are uncomfortable to talk about. If you get bad feedback, you need to be able to be receptive to that and respond in a positive way, and like get to the why you're getting that feedback so that you can solve that problem. So I mean, design is 90% communication, so easily. So being a good communicator is absolutely imperative.
Sounds like being curious rather than defensive.
100%.
100%.
Always curious.
I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the worst piece of advice that you were given or that you've heard somebody else give a client?
We've had some terrible things. Make the logo bigger is always a common one, but we had someone who asked for the color black in this design, a digital design, to be more black. At 100% black, they wanted it to be more black, which is physically impossible because black on a screen is the absence of light in your pixels. So I thought that was funny. But really, like, the terrible piece of advice is for the web was like making sure you have everything above the fold. Above the fold is a holdover from the newspaper days of yore.
Okay.
So people expect to scroll on the internet, and they will scroll for your content. You need to give them affordances so that they know to scroll. There's easy ways to do that with design. But having a long scrolling page with your content broken up in easily digestible segments is far more better. It's better in usability studies than having the content on multiple pages. You have to click multiple places to get there and get through it all. It's just much easier for your user to have it all on one page where you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good to know because I've actually heard that above the fold thing.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. I'm like, that's a myth. That's a myth on the internet. So yeah.
All right. So, turning away from your job a little bit, how would you describe your purpose in life?
All right, this is where I'm gonna get a little weepy.
Okay.
Like, purpose and these kinds of questions always like get me like really hard. But generally, I would say it's to leave the world better than I found it. I'm here to help people connect, and we do that through storytelling. I think our consciousness as a species is imperative to our survival, and I think our consciousness, a big part of that is storytelling and connecting with other people, and you can't do that if you don't hear and understand other people's stories. So I feel like making those connections and just kind of helping people the world a better place, do so with kindness. That's kind of my thought on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So better place equals more connected.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel
like
like
it.
there's a big loneliness problem, you know, in the world today, especially with the way technology has driven our development and our brain development as well, you know, and I think a lot of people feel lonely even though we're surrounded by content and texting and things all the time. So it's really through those connections that we can find meaning as humans.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. In a similar vein, what is something that other people value that you don't?
So, unsustainable growth. I would say there's an emphasis on always growing, especially in business. You got to always grow your business, make more money, make more money, make more money. It's constant and it's unsustainable to do that always and forever. Life has cycles. Things grow, they mature, they die, they regenerate. You know, there are cycles in life, and for a business to just constantly be going up, 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 up on the money scale, all of that, it's just not a sustainable practice, I don't think. And I think, yeah, so all of this to say I'm dancing around the word capitalism. So I'm not fond of it in general. I think the way we do it is very toxic nowadays.
There's a lot of selfishness around.
There's a lot of emphasis on the money and the self and the greed, and I'm just not here for that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, if there was one law that you could create that everyone had to follow, what would it be?
This is a tricky one. I gave a lot of thought. I'm not sure it counts as a law, but if it's something that its absence could absolutely kill you, it should not be sold for profit. Selling it is fine, but the profit side, like, we got to watch out for that. You know, like things like housing, food per se, you know, or medicine especially. I think this really applies to the healthcare system here, you know. I think especially when you look at cost of insulin for folks, like that can be really prohibitive for people, and it's a matter of like, can I have my insulin to live another day or eat? You know, so I feel like, yeah, if it could absolutely kill you without having it, it probably shouldn't be a profit thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that capitalism thing again.
So, I feel like I may know the answer because I heard you talk about a book earlier. But if there was a book you read or a podcast that you listened to that you're really passionate about, what is it and why?
So I just started reading this book called Design Justice, and it's fascinating, it's wonderful, but it's really a lot about sort of dismantling inequalities that sort of get designed into our systems, and instead of perpetuating them, challenging them and doing something about it. So it's really designing for a better world, and I'm only at the very beginning of it, but it's very, like, it's an intense read, but it is incredible. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then, this is our last question. So we're almost done. When you're done, how do you want to be remembered?
That's a tricky one. I'm not sure. I think I would just like to be remembered as somebody who did make the world a better place.
Okay.
With kindness.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. I'm like, ooh. Get a little choked up there.
I like it. All right. Juliet Oliva, Pixel Strike Creative. Tell people again how they can find you on the web.
We are at pixelstrikecreative.com.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it.